This week, the forecast is sunny with a chance of sudden girlfriend.
And I become Heavenly Fighter, Angel, and Robot Curious. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Garrett, and we watch anime.
Garrett, this week we are going to be discussing a type of anime that was really common, especially in my formative teenage years, which for some reason or another does not exist now. These anime are playful yet weird, touching yet erotic. It gave me weird feelings of both confusion and nostalgia. That's why I felt it was necessary this week to get someone else to watch them with me, with fresh eyes. We are talking about the niche market for hormonal teenagers, the sudden girlfriend anime genre. But before we begin, Garrett, what are new fans going to be expecting from these shows?
Imagine everything has been produced by Bill Cosby, and that's actually
Nintendo pudding.
If Bill Cosby and Kevin Spacey created a production company, that is exactly what this week would deliver to you.
Yeah, a lot of sleeping girls randomly. So what we're going to be doing is...
And a lot of just like, oh my god, I'm falling on you!
A lot of suddenness, unplanned suddenness, right. So this week we are going to be talking another explainer. This week we're doing a very specific genre, what is known as the sudden girlfriend genre. And before I get into the idea of what the stuff's all about, just give me some initial impressions. What are some few things you took out of this topic?
Every breast in Japan is in these episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Just massive.
They pull from the breast exchange, yes, from the Tokyo breast exchange.
Yes, Tetons worth of breast. And really just kind of like uncomfortable stuff that in sort of like I'm not trying to be politically correct out there for anyone, but just in kind of the Me Too era in which we exist, a lot of this stuff is borderline uncomfortable, even though it's animated.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I want to kind of emphasize, and what we're going to be answering a few questions for the week, is the timeliness of this, right? These shows came in a very specific subset of time, and there's a reason why they don't exist now. And so we'll talk about those questions in a little bit, but for those out there that are just watching this for the first time, first off, tell us which 3 shows are we watching? Are we talking about this week?
Right. I'll tell you about the 3 shows, but I just want you to know, as you're going through and watching the shows, you start to negotiate with yourself as to what is acceptable to you and what is not acceptable to you. And you're like, well, I mean that. And then the other one, you're like, no, that's not kosher. That's not cool at all.
You tend to have inner monologues, like all the main characters in this show, like, oh, but she's sleeping, but I shouldn't touch her. But where's her on button? Like all that stuff. You do that while you're watching the show. You're like, I'm a 35-year-old man, but I've watched these shows before. Oh, we're doing this for a podcast. It's like that kind of stuff.
If you and I were watching this when we were 20-year-old undergrads, we absolutely would not have that presence of mind because we were dunderheads and we heard. But as you watch it now, you're like,
So what are those? So tell everybody, what are those 3 shows you watched this week?
So the shows that we watched this week were, I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm going to say Deers.
It's just Deers, yeah.
Deers.
But it's spelled with the deer with a big S, yeah.
With a capital S, yes,
right.
Absolutely. Sekirei.
Yep, Sekirei, yep.
And Chobits.
And Chobits, yep.
Which, by the way, we'll get there. Chobits, hands down, best intro music.
Yes, we're definitely going to talk about the theme music because I got to tell you how I found the theme music first, and it's a really funny story.
Looking forward to it.
Show. And so these were really popular in the early 2000s, and they were definitely popular when Kyle was a teenager and in early college. It was definitely a big fan of mine. I was of these shows. The main audience was definitely, and I think both you and I could agree on this, it was definitely young boys. Mm-hmm. Although there are sudden boyfriend genre shows as well, like where suddenly a young attractive male comes out, it's generally geared towards the young men crowd.
Yeah, they know where their bread is buttered.
Exactly. And so if you were to watch these genres, some of the common themes you'll find is that the first is that the protagonist is always unimpressive. They're usually losers that don't have school, they don't have jobs generally. So that they could be like an everyman avatar for the watcher.
Call it the weird science rule.
Yeah, and yes, exactly. And it's also to explain why they have all this time to dedicate to the sudden girlfriend. So it serves a purpose, but like it's also a kind of a trope. The second thing is that the world all of a sudden gets like a new strange phenomena that becomes normalized over time. That is not normal here, right? So like all of a sudden, female robots are a thing, or aliens crash landed a year ago, and now we're all cool with that, or that's the kind of thing that happens.
How they explain it away.
Yeah, it's a big explain away. It's definitely a blood sport. I went to Brussels kind of situation. And then this third thing, which is what makes it the suddenness, is the main character suddenly becomes interfaced with a beautiful girl/woman who only wants to be around them. And no matter how hard they try, they will never shake this woman off of them. Mm-hmm. They're like barnacles on an old ship. They're just constantly like. So, and then finally, the last thing we'll kind of go over more of this is that the heroine is usually special when it comes to the like different things that you go with, and even more important than the rest of the heroines you'll meet in the series. Therefore, if a harem appears, you won't forget who you're really rooting for, right? So, like in the case of like Sekirei. There's a whole bunch of like girls that'll show up, but like really you'll never forget about the original one because she'll be special somehow. She'll be a super powerful one, or
she is of the fist power.
She is of the fist, which there's a lot to unpack about that show and the not so subtle double entendres they have in that show. But yeah, they're also usually in the like romance, ecchi, sci-fi, and harem genre. Like they can kind of swing in between that, but they generally have that kind of like sci-fi fantasy component to it. And then finally, the last thing is they're not period pieces. Usually they're set in modern day Japan or some variant of that. So you'll see that it was pretty cookie cutter, Garrett, and I don't know if you saw that too.
I forget which one it was, but it was clearly set in the future, and it was the year 2020.
I know, that's why I like picking that one. I was like, this
was this only knew.
If they only knew. If our biggest problem was like busty women fighting for like heaven. Like if only, and like, but now you have to kind of look at them through the windows of your house. But I know. So we're gonna try to answer 3 questions today. The goal of this show is to answer 3 questions. The first one is, and we'll kind of do this per show, is it too much? Is it too hard to watch? And that's more of like a question for you to answer, right? Was this a tough thing to watch? You said you enjoyed some. You said not so much other ones. We'll figure out which ones are there. The second one is it possible for these to be wholesome? Right? Is it possible for these to have a deeper meaning well below the surface of this very like obvious thing that they're doing, right? And the third thing is, can these be made today? Is it possible to reinvigorate the son and girlfriend genre with new properties, and what would that take? So that's, as we go over each episode, we'll probably kind of give a better sense, and we'll talk about at the end of the show. Does that sound good, Garrett?
Sure, I'm ready to roll.
Let's do this. All right, so the first show we're going to be talking about is Chobits, which I love this show. This is the one that I made Christine watch because I thought it was gonna be more wholesome than the other two. Like I knew Sekirei was a little ecchi. I was worried about what Deers was because it was a little like submissive-y. I was like, let's try Chobits. Let's see how she does with it. And I forgot a whole lot. 2 episodes. I was like, I forgot about that. I kept staring at my wife like, I forgot about that.
You only made her watch 2 episodes.
I only made her watch 2 episodes. In the first episode alone, I was like, oh no, honey, I promise you, this is a little bit more cute than you think. I promise. So. It ran from 2000, so this is the oldest one we've done. It ran from 2000 to 2002 is the manga. Oh, okay. And then the anime ran all the way through 2002. Another common theme you'll see here is that they only really got 1 season of the anime. And maybe it was just to wet your whistle, that kind of stuff. It really was never.
Well, I mean, you've said in the past, obviously, there are many shows that defy this rule where the anime actually becomes the money-making property.
Right, exactly.
But very often the anime is just to interest people, especially in the 90s, 2000s, late aughts, is to interest them into paying for the manga.
Especially when like the bait that you're giving people when they're reading this is, will they get together at the end? It's like the common, carrot on a stick that you get with most things. It's like, it's what they do in like crime dramas is like give everybody sexual tension and wonder like, will it happen? Will they or won't they? That's the kind of the thing that they have with these shows. So the first show we did, Chobits, was also written by an uber famous all-female manga group known as Clamp. So
I'm sorry, written by an all-female?
Every single author of these pieces are female.
Well, that is a surprise.
Yes, kick me in the Johnson. That is a surprise. So Clamp in particular is a very, 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 very famous artist group, and they're all female. And they basically started in the 1980s, and they really started as like that, like, you know how the author of what's it called, the Twilight series made like, you know, yaoi boy love versions of like, you know, fandom of like Harry Potter, and that's how Twilight.
Yeah, Stephanie Meyer basically, like, yeah.
She's trying to make smut for women, and that's how Twilight came out. That's what they were doing, and then they just kind of became professional and got better at what they were doing, and so now they've made some really cool shows.
Well, 50 Shades of Grey was Twilight fanfic.
Right, exactly. It's all fan fictions that like turned into actual good stories. Some properties that you might know from them are Card Captor Sakura, also known as Card Captors in the United States. You might have heard of that one. Triple X Holic and Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles.
Wait, Triple X Holic is Vin Diesel in that?
Yeah. So,
why did Vin Diesel become Batman?
That's what he sounds like, though. In my mind, is he not? I don't think he sounds like this. I don't think he sounds like this either.
What is he, Carnival Barker? Hey, everybody, my name is Vin Diesel.
We're family. We're family. I swear, we're family. I love Corona. Like that kind of stuff. That's my best Vin Diesel impression, folks.
All right.
So let's talk about Chobits. Set the world up for me. What's the show about?
Right. So Chobits was the third in the one that I watched. So it's the most.
Yeah, it's my first one.
So we open up on just a good old country boy, a regular John Denver, out on the farm, looking to go to college. And I guess in Japan, because this was mentioned in 2 of the animes that we watched for this episode, in America, if you want to go to college, you can go to college. Whether it's your community college or whether it's Harvard, somewhere along the way, someone's going to take you.
Yeah.
But apparently, at the time in Japan, you had to apply, and there's a good chance college would tell you, no, you're not coming here. So we start with this dude who's out in the middle of the country, and he decides he's going to get into college, and he gets rejected. Well, he ends up coming to Tokyo anyway because he wants to prep himself. He's like, I'm going to work real hard, and I'm going to get approved to go into college.
This is like the go-getter of the main characters. Like, some of them are kind of like...
He's actually the most, like...
likable of the 3.
Yes, he is likable. I'm not going to say he has anything going for him unless he's got a dowry. He might own a big farm.
Right, maybe.
But I just know the opening, like, photo is a cow.
Yes, exactly. Right before you get to the theme song. Yes.
So he comes to the city, and he is enamored. And it makes sense that you say that it aired from 2000 to 2002 because he's just like, oh, my God, there's so many people. There's so much going on. But immediately we're introduced to something called persona comms. And persona comms are, think of like, not I Am Legend. Think of iRobot, but if they were sex toys.
Right. What's the name of the one that was Deus Ex? Was the name? Wasn't that? Or no? It was like
Deus
Ex Machina. Ex Machina.
Yeah, Machina. Yeah.
Was the name of the movie in which it was about like having sex
with Alicia Vikander.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So, points to me for pronouncing that name correctly.
Yes.
So anyway, so he looks in the mirror and it's like, I don't know, I think it was 500,000 or 5 million yen, and he's like, what? But essentially, he is super duper excited about the internet. Like, and the city and technology, and he immediately starts fawning over this idea of the persona comm, which is kind of like a personal assistant, right? So they make them in these really attractive, girly designs. But
they look like humans. Like, they're really...
Right. They look like humans with the exception that they have these ears, which are essentially and this is how it really dates itself, is they're not USB ports, they're auxiliary ports.
Yes, they're RGB analog. So that's one thing I loved about this show, and we'll probably dig on this a little bit more, is the lack of foresight that in the early 2000s they had on what technology could be. It's like, I have this, like, we found a way to make humans, essentially. We've created artificial life, but yet our TVs are still large boxes. Every time they connect to the internet, it still makes that sound. And it's still like the lack of foresight to be like, yeah, we did this really crazy like leap in technology, but like everything else is kind of stuck. I thought that was fascinating. And I also love, my favorite thing was, I didn't really get the idea until a little later, was like, this thing connects to the internet. I'm like, how? Or calls. Like, do you go to the woman's face and go like, call my mom? And like the woman's like, hi dear. Like, that's what I was like, how does that work?
Right. Well,
to this thing.
Well, you learn through another character in the episode sort of like their capabilities. So So this
Yeah.
main character, do you have the main character's name listed? Because
Yes, it's in the second part, but his name is Hideki Motosuya.
So Morosuya goes to the city and he takes up residence in sort of this boarding house that's run by this really beautiful maiden. Don't know her age, but
Yeah.
she might prove to be a potential romantic interest to the lead
Right.
character. But he goes there and he's introduced to another 18-year-old
Yeah.
who lives on the same floor,
Yeah.
who is also attending college or prospectively attending college.
Yeah.
And he introduces him to his persona com, which is like this little like elven
Tiny.
leopard.
This is like the iPod Shuffle version of
Right.
like
It's an
of
iPad
like-
Mini, the iPad Mini
it's
version.
the iPad Mini, but of human beings, like literally this little chibi like fairy creature. Yes.
So he's telling him how great it is to have a persona com, all the things that they do, and of course they teach you how to go to porn sites. And there's this moment where they both give each other thumbs up for a porn site. Ha!
And that's where my wife was going like, of course, Kyle, of course. That's what she said. Because he says porn multiple times in this show. You would think like for such like a likable guy, he wouldn't just like outwardly like scream like I love porn, but he does. He does a lot.
Well, look, I know that we have female listeners out there. I know that we have male listeners out there. I know we have listeners out there of every persuasion. But for those who like adult content, and I'll be as clean as I can because I don't want to offend anyone out there. For those that like adult content, if you are under the age of 30, you will never know.
Right.
You will never know the lengths that it took to get that. I mean, talk about our parents and getting magazines that you had to steal from the back of a deli or have an adult buy for you, all the way to us to waiting for web pages to load, never knowing what it would be. Just know that the world that it exists now, all information from knowledge to science to shopping to porn, the instantaneousness that you have now did not exist always. So in this anime, I understand why it's such like this is something we can do.
Yeah.
So this guy is enamored with the idea, but he clearly can't afford it.
No, it's a very expensive thing.
And he is literally walking down the street one day, and he finds a persona com just laying on a pile of garbage. And at first he thinks it's a dead chick. And he's like, my first day in Tokyo and I'm going to jail.
Like, imagine you just see like an unconscious dead woman in the trash.
And you're a country boy.
He had the right response though. I would say the thing like, oh, do I call the cops? What do I do here?
Right. But then he realizes he realizes it's a persona com, and he negotiates with himself that he's helping the dumps by not allowing them to take unnecessary things. And he brings her home, and he has this moment where he's trying to figure out how to turn her on. And
I forgot about this part, and this is the part that I was like, oh God, is this really going to happen? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh God, I'm making my wife watch this, but yeah.
Right. So his buddy down the hall had said, when he said, how do persona coms work? He's like, oh, you just have to hit a button and they turn on. Great. Right. We all grew up with G.I. Joes. We all grew up with Barbies. Like, there's likely a button in the back that you press and it activates. Except he checks the back and it doesn't work. And then he checks the navel and it doesn't work. And then he checks the head and it doesn't work. And then he checks the breast and it doesn't work. And then he checks the toes and it doesn't work. And all of a sudden, you see a crotch shot and he goes, no. Could this be the way? And for lack of a better term, he finger bangs her into existence.
It's true though. And I remember going like, no. I remember thinking like, I forgot this. Like, no, this is the wholesome one. This is the one. And I'm like, oh no, don't make the button be don't make it be the clitoris. Like, don't do this to me. And then it was, and she was like,
To be fair, Kyle, I don't think it was the clitoris. I think it was the G spot, which is inside on the top, about 1.5 inches in.
Yes,
but like,
it's so now all women knows that like when they learn about anatomy, there's the clitoris and then there's the Chobits, and that's what you have to find.
It was, my wife was baking in the kitchen, and I was like, "Don't come in this room, don't come in this room. I really hope you don't turn the corner."
So what we learned about her as well is, and this is kind of another kind of common theme, is that they, unlike other things of the type that they end up being, like they're kind of the dumb, useless one of that kind. Mm-hmm. Like she can only say one word, he, she doesn't have like, she basically doesn't have like a memory of anything. Like she doesn't know what's happening.
Which I'm sure will come in like 20 episodes.
Right. And she, you know, and she's cute, but she's kind of like, what are clothes? Like, what is this? Like, it's a lot of that. And,
Right.
but I think it was cute, it was endearing. And I mean, I kind of did like the show.
No, I really enjoyed it. And remember when I said you're like negotiating with yourself if this is okay or not?
Yeah.
I was able to negotiate that this was okay because she's a robot.
Right, exactly.
She is not a sentient being. Right. She does not have a soul. Mm-hmm. And by that means I was like, this is not how I would choose to live my life, but I get it.
Yeah, exactly. And there are people out there, like just recently there was a person from Kazakhstan who married his sex doll.
A bodybuilder?
Yeah, he was a bodybuilder who married his sex doll. He said he met her at a club, which I don't know how that worked, but so this show I think is the most wholesome. It's more of a romance. It's not really a like harem, like look at all the pretty girls kind of thing, or like it's less submissive than the other stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I would say like what the themes it touches on, that I think it really does have something under the surface of it. It's like once you get past the like, because here I feel like I'm getting myself into a hole and I'm going to dig myself out of it. So basically what I think is that, and we'll talk about this later, is these shows kind of do the kind of like wish fulfillment of young boys. Like it's a wish fulfillment fantasy that boys can dive into, but then it also gives you the responsibility, like what happens after the wish fulfillment's over. Like how do you take responsibility now that you're thinking of like, it's kind of like, as you said, like weird science, like you created this beautiful woman who like knows all this stuff, but then eventually the woman kind of teaches you how to be a better man and kind of does like, it's that kind of stuff. Like once you get past that
is how it self-justifies.
Yes. Well, but I also feel like it does have some wholesomeness in this particular show. So for me, I think it does have a lot. And as I said, we'll have space for this later. But I would be remiss, because this caused quite a commotion on our Instagram, was the Chobits theme song, which I would argue is one of the best, if not the best theme song of all time in terms of shows. Now let me give you
anime. So terrific.
It's so good. And the best thing about it is that I found it through when I was living overseas. I was buying a lot of like bootleg anime. And what they would do is, because they were trying to be entrepreneurial, Central Americans, is that they would play the theme songs of 3 different shows and be like, come by our stall and we'll show you more of these. And one was the Chobits theme. And I was like, I don't know what this is about, but I love the theme song. That is so cool. And then I ended up watching it. It was really cool. And now I just love the song, and it kind of hits like a nostalgia nerve for a lot of people. I don't know. Did you feel the same way about it?
Well, I mean, I absolutely thought I was watching the intro to a 1979 porno movie. But
it does have like it's like
yes.
It's a lot of that whammy bar.
Yes. Oh, it was absolutely. It was like watching. Think of it if George Lucas was doing a fade in, but of a porno movie. No, it's not called a fade. It's called a swipe.
Yeah, swipe. Yeah, those are the swipes he did a lot.
Swipe, but into like a porno movie. And then all of a sudden, like a young Nina Hartley.
Yeah,
like
a young Nina Hartley.
A young Nina Hartley.
I know this is the 70s. Remind you, this is.
Although to be fair, she would not have been in porn in the 70s. Like I know she's like 60 now, but it's 2020.
Yeah,
so in the 70s, she would be 10.
Yeah, she would be this age that she presents herself as in this show.
Right.
So, but I'm going to also say thank you to everybody who talked on our Instagram. I'm going to reference some of my favorite comments that we got. Second Coming of Haven said, it is the greatest. I think I'm going to cry. And that's the kind of thing. I think it's got a little nostalgia to it, and I agree.
Yeah.
Because once you get to it, it is kind of a cute ending to this show. The second, Loner Boys Typing wrote, is the best anime opening song. I would say the second one is Angelic Layer, which is continued version of Chobits by Frank. So there's more to Chobits past Chobits. And I agree. I think they do the kind of similar style. And I know that for this whole time we're talking, we'll be playing the song in the background. And the last one was that they compared it to Elfin Lied, another show we'll be talking about, but they have very different themes. The only thing they have difference is the horns. So, but thank you all for, definitely chat us up, because we love having the interactions. But
I love the input.
I love it. It's great, though. It's a great song. I love it. And, I mean, I'm glad everybody thought the same thing. The second show we're going to be talking about is Deers, or Deer, capital D, Deer, capital S. I think there's a reason for that later in the show, but I forgot it because I read it a long time ago. But the manga came out in 2002 and it ran to 2005. The anime ran for only 13 episodes in 2004, so it was a very short run anime, but the manga had a good run. And it was written by a dual female group called Peach Pit. So another female group wrote this.
That's a vagina reference.
Yes. It's the Chobits spot. That's what they call themselves.
Tonight at the pit, everyone gets laid.
And once again, this is The World is in Modern Japan. It's kind of a similar story, save for a few small details. But so walk us through it, Garrett. What's the story of Deers?
It's problematic. Deers is about future Tokyo.
Right.
And an alien race landed. Their spaceship fell out of the sky and landed in the sea outside of Japan.
Mm-hmm.
There's about 150, 160 aliens on board.
Mm-hmm.
And they have become a part of society so much so that they've learned the language and the culture, and have all become Japanese citizens. But they are extraordinarily attractive. And I know the show references both men and women, but in the first few episodes, you only ever actually see the women.
You see one at the end of episode 2. One
man?
One male, yes.
Okay.
But basically, it's like aliens came to Earth and they are hot.
But not only are they hot, they all wear leashes.
Yes, it's a little BDSM-y, but they wear their little choker chains.
I had issues with this one. Tell me about this one, Kyle. You tell me. Because I feel dirty.
So we'll talk about the main character, whose name is Takeya Ikuhara. He's just your normal average guy who works at a video store, who steals rental porn for his friends so that he can eat. He's essentially...
Naturally, as you would if you were a teenager and you worked at a Blockbuster that had like the beaded curtain.
Yes, the 18 only. Yeah, and he works there, and he actually starts the episode being like, my boss beat me up for stealing porn. So this is the great main character we're supposed to all work towards. And he also has a very, like, I would say, normal response to the idea of aliens coming to Earth, and they're very hot. He's like, these are obviously like plants that are gonna like have lizards under their face, and like they're gonna easily kill us all, and like
he absolutely
do not trust them.
He thinks it's like the Independence Day where there's like a tiny creature behind the head controlling the whole body.
Yes, like he's like, they look hot for the reason that they're trying to kill us all. And like he even has a dream where he has like a tentacle hentai moment for himself. He's like, ah! And she's like, we're gonna take you now. And I believe it. I believe that is a very reasonable response to like aliens crash landing on Earth. Have a little skepticism, because the humans decided to call these aliens deers, and which in your language means that we're dear friends and all that stuff. So I guess that's what we're gonna go with. And so once again, like our boy, from Chobits, Hideki, he stumbles upon this like shivering cold woman off the side of the road who's like, like a refugee off the boat of like, Syria.
You're absolutely right. She is like shivering behind a bush, and he realizes who she is, and he's like, nope, not gonna have it.
And she's naked on you, completely nude, save for her choke collar.
But we mentioned she has this collar with like a triangle,
like dinner's ready time. Like,
and if you stroke her triangle, these like effervescent ribbons burst out from everywhere and give her like a bikini.
This is such a weird sentence. I know, like most people are like, so you stroke the triangle to get the bikini off. Like, is that? It's more. It flows better than what Garrett is making it seem.
Right. Well, but then the lead, he has this female friend.
And that's another common thing. That's another thing, just to put a pin on what you were saying, is like, there's always, in every harem show, but also in these kind of son and girlfriend shows, there's always the like, oh, we've been friends forever. And it's usually the first person you meet in like the first 10 seconds of an anime. I'm sick of that too. Like, I'm sick of the like, hi, you need to know about me because I'm the friend you've known since forever. Tee-hee, I'm going to wake you up for school. Like, it's that kind of character.
Yeah.
Like, I wish they would just avoid that. Like, she's very exposition-y. Like, oh, we've been friends forever, but you're kind of a loser.
They use her to move the story along.
Yeah. Basically, it's also to like have a female counterpart to make what he's doing less weird. in my mind. So, but yeah, go on. So he meets this alien triangle bondage lady, and what happens?
Well, time out on this.
Let's go. 明日もハッピー Go go 不思議なハッピー
The best character in this entire show
Yeah.
is the teacher.
Yeah. Oh my God. The effing teacher.
So
okay.
here we are.
We're gonna time out explaining what this show's all about. To
fans out there, you are hearing us talk about the boring lead. You're like, yeah. I expect that. We're talking about the exposition, the best friend that moves the story along. Yeah. You understand that. There's the hot female lead. In this case, she's an alien. She moves the harem, and you're like, yeah. I get that. But Dear S also has a super rapey female teacher who teaches in negligee and insists on sexually harassing all of her
students. All of her students. And everything that they do from henceforth has to be tied to this woman's libido. Like, when they had English class, it's like, now read this, translate this sentence. And Jing's like, he spanked her rear end. And she's like, nah! And she's like orgasming the whole time, too.
Right.
So
or when so this alien has come down, so the lead goes to the mall to get her some clothes, and the girl's changing. And this teacher who's trying on lingerie sees that the girl has a leash, and she goes, "You're much too young to be doing things like that, but please tell me in explicit detail the things that you do to one another."
And mind you, she came out of her dressing room with what I would say is the tip of a pen covering the one nipple, and with a tassel attached to it, and then everything else was strings. It was something. Let me tell you, it was something. And she loves harassing her kids. It was that has no excuse for it. Like, the teacher scene was inexcusable, but I guess it's also, once again,
Didn't make your wife watch that, did you?
Forgot about that. I did forget about it. So he finds the deer that goes with him to his house because he's like, I don't know what to do with this thing. And he was like, I felt weird, like, turning it into the police and going to
and it's also been alluded to that we know who all the deers are that have come to the country, but the opening scene of the entire series is on a bridge, and a truck has an accident, and a tractor trailer overturns, and a pod is ejected and lands in the river, and a female form comes at her. So I believe that we're sort of being led to believe, and remember, Kyle and I only watched 2 or 3 episodes of each of these, but we're kind of being led to believe that everything is not as it seems.
Right.
Okay. Either the aliens have come down, and while they're here, they're running experiments that we don't know about, or maybe the aliens have arrived and we actually stole some of their people, and we've been running experiments on them.
Right.
So we don't know other than something not quite right is happening.
He was an accidental occurrence, essentially. And he takes her in, and he also, unlike the main character who's like really excited to have his own Persicom, this character, Ikara is very much like, stay away, you creepy alien. I don't want you around. And the alien's like, and the alien also doesn't speak Japanese, but she speaks like this weird, like, language at him, and he doesn't understand what she's saying. So she does have some intelligence. She just can't speak Japanese yet. And it's that same thing of like this, like, kind of puppy dog woman kind of coming at you the whole time, and you're just like trying to figure out what to do with this thing. It was really weird in that regard.
Now, can you tell me what the hell melon bread is?
Melon bread is awesome. So melon pan, as it's called, have you ever had a concha before? It's like bread, but it's got like a little sugar on the top, and
it's the Latin dish.
The Latin dish. Well, it's that, but like imagine it's in the like this kind of crisscross pattern on top, so it looks like an actual melon that they have there that has like this like kind of like a pineapple kind of X's on it, and that's melon pan. It's basically bread that's kind of has that like sweet sugar thing is in the top, and you eat it, and it's pretty basic. It's very cheap. That's why him and Ren eat it all the time, and she loves melon pan. She loves melon pan so much that she eats the entire bag that he exchanged porn for, his whole supply of it. And not only that,
by the way, that was another thing when you talk about exchanging porn.
yes.
So, and look, if you were the first guy to get an ID, everyone wanted to drive with you. If
Right.
you were the first guy to turn 21, everyone wanted you to buy alcohol for that.
Right.
So he is the guy that works at the video store that has an adult section, and he would bring the tapes to his classmates so that they could borrow it. And they do this weird anime trope where they're like, and they turn.
Do you remember the name of the store that he worked at that I just noticed? It was
No.
called Biceps was the name of the video store. I was like, what? So you're telling me there's female porn at this thing? At Biceps for video store? So yeah, and not only that, but they actually have like a really good running memory of like the production cycle of these porns too. He's like, oh, is that the one that came out in November? Oh, that's the one with this actress. And I was like I'm a hot-blooded, heterosexual man, just like anybody else. My memory would not have served me that much for the sake of pornography, but these boys loved it so much. And so, it's a little BDMS-y. It gets into that whole like master-servant thing. It's a little weird. In fact, the end of the second episode is like, he's like, oh, it's great we get to meet you, dears, and you're going to be coming to our school. And he goes, because I don't want to confuse you. Us dears were slaves. Close scene, and that kind of like started that whole idea. So I know I did. Was that one of the conversations you had with yourself as well? As like, am I okay with getting through all the BDSM themes of the?
I was decidedly not okay with deer.
Also, another thing with the melon pond, which I thought was really funny, is the mid card was another one of my favorites, which was so it's like the melon pond comes down and a chibi Ren comes by and she starts like chomping this big thing and it's like starts disappearing like a cartoon. But then the second like deers come down and she's got huge breasts and she's like eating the melon pond, but eventually she eats all the bread and then glomps onto the female's breasts and she's like, get off of me. It's like that was the mid card of this show. So weird. And so it's gonna need a second. By the way, another thing of the show that I thought was pretty interesting were the titles. So let me read you 4 of the titles for this show, of the names of the episodes. So episode 1 was called I Want to Nibble Sweetly. Episode 2 was called Is It Too Small? Which was in reference to the teacher's swimsuit. Episode 11 was called Let's Have an Orgy. And episode 12 is called Do You Want to Experience It? And that's we'll leave it at that. Kind of gives you an idea of the spirit of the show. Finally, Garrett, we went to a show that I was having problems with getting through, and it reminded me why I didn't get far with this show, was the show Sekirei, which is another son and girlfriend with like a little bit of a twist. This
Hands down, the best show.
So 2 things that I thought for this show. The first is that we mentioned this before we started, was like nipples galore. This show there's going to be no coverage of nipples on this show. The second thing I think, and it's going to kind of lead to what we do in the talk about the show, was I bet you were super confused watching like Deers and Chobits, and then all of a sudden Sekirei comes in, and the first scene is like people getting brutally murdered with swords and stuff. I was like, oh, I bet Garrett's really confused about that.
Does not fit the rest of the first 2 episodes.
Just her like, did-do, yeah, did-do. They're like, oh my God, she's coming! Oh!
You didn't stop me, so I killed them all.
Right? I was like, oh man, that's going to confuse Garrett to no end. That's not going to seem very congruous whatsoever. So this show, Sekirei, which we'll talk about, it's a manga that ran from 2004 to 2015. So this thing had a manga shelf life. This thing lasted for a long time. It may have gone on hiatus a few times, so that might explain it. But the anime only came out for 1 season in 2008. Once again, this is another show that was written by a woman. So all those nipples were drawn by a female.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully she knows how anatomically correct they are. Maybe she's part of the Free the Nipple, #FreeTheNipple, thing. So, and it takes place in Tokyo, but a new version of it called Shinto Teito, which is the new Eastern Imperial capital. Another thing that I wanted to bring up to you as well is, how we keep talking about periods in Japan?
Yeah.
Is that, and someone brought it up as well. They said this, and Deer, she says, this is very different than what it was like in the Showa era. So the Showa era went from the 20s until 1989, when Hirohito died, and then his son Akihito, who actually abdicated his throne in 2019, was the era known as Heisei, which is what we were pretty much in up until the past year and a half, which is now called the Reiwa period. So they're still doing it. It's kind of like the Jewish calendar and all that stuff. They still have their periods running throughout the. So just wanted to give people a little bit of historical content before we start talking about bouncy nipples and stuff like that. So Garrett, once again, probably was very surprised by the violence, but after that, it got a little bit more wholesome. Talk us through this world that we live in the year 2020.
Year 2020. So Minato is another unimpressive character, a
Totally.
Ross, a Ted Mosby who has failed for the second time.
He's also has he's the no confidence main character. He's the one that he's actually capable, but he doesn't believe in himself. That's his jam. But once again, unimpressive guy. Yeah.
Right. So he fails to get into college for the second time. He failed the first time, failed the second time. And he's walking down the street after getting his exam results, and he's really dejected about what's happened.
Yep.
And a large, big-breasted woman flies out of the sky and lands.
Falls out of the sky. This is the one where son and girlfriend, we're not going to go with the whole, found her in the trash, or she was just, off on the side. This woman literally
fell out of the sky.
Fell out of the sky and landed breast first into his face. Come on, guys. Wouldn't you wish that upon anybody?
She's like,
realized.
And she's like, I knew that jump was too far. So this girl is being chased by two other girls in pleather dominatrix outfits who are shooting lightning. Right, lightning. And
the way he was explaining it to was kind of meek. He was like, what's all the zip zaps? Where are all the zip zaps coming from on these ladies' fingers? It's
right.
Dude, it's lightning. You could say it's electricity, it's lightning.
Right.
We'll call them zip zaps.
And so we kind of fast forward, but this girl clearly doesn't want to fight with these two other girls.
Yeah.
So they escape, and she grabs his hand. And this leads us to what I think is one of Kyle's favorite tropes in all of anime, is the waking up in bed next to a girl and being like, huh? What? Huh? What? I didn't do anything.
You saw it not once, not twice, but 3 times. You're not sick of it, Garrett? You're not? Because I saw it again, and I'm like, of course, why not?
And he wakes up and her panties are in his face, and he's like,
the way that some of these women sleep in the show seems unnatural to me. I have a wife who we've been sharing the same bed for several years. Never once have I had her wake up with her ass in my face like a cat. Just never had that ever happened before.
And have her sucking her thumb, going, huh? What?
Yeah, and then wake up cooing Cindy Lou Who Never has that happened. My wife's a normal human being, not a Sekirei, I guess. So
right.
Oh.
So the Reader's Digest version
is
that this girl is a part of some competition of girls battling across the city. But before you can become a proper member of the battle, you have to take on a significant other or male partner known as an ashikabi?
Ashikabi, yeah.
Ashikabi.
Yeah.
And this is sort of your real world dude.
Yeah.
And he keeps you grounded and you elevate him. And before you can sort of join the fight and I think kind of release all your powers is you have to find this. So this girl who we refer to as Masubi-chan, which...
Masubi with the big old boobies, yep.
Masubi with the boobie.
Mm-hmm.
But they're all called Masubi.
Yeah.
She happens to be, I think, number 88. Masubi number 88.
Yeah.
And we don't...
No, I think they have different names. One was called Hikari, and they have different names. Her name's Masubi. Her number's 88, you're right, but they're all Sekireis, which is the name of their group, basically.
Right. So we don't learn in the first 2 or 3 episodes whether she's a real girl, whether she's a Borg, whether she's a robot, what she is. But we do know that she has sort of this superhuman strength and ability and naivete that is just so charming and alluring. And overlooking all of this is the quintessential anime baddie.
This guy, I wish that there were politicians or CEOs that clearly telegraphed that they were villains by the fact that they wore this Spawn level
right. So
collar and would get on the big screen on Times Square and be like, "Hello, I'm the CEO, son."
if Bill Gates had the Spawn collar and like Andy Warhol hair,
Yeah, and like huge,
Like-
like couldn't more like telegraph, I'm the villain of this story on the big screens that you watch. I wish.
Also, he's the CEO of this mega corporation, and they buy all the stock to the city.
Yeah.
How do you like? I get it. You buy treasury bonds. You buy bonds to a city project. How do you actually buy the city stock to own the city?
He's like Ron Paul. He's like, let's blow up the Fed, you know?
Let's hand out letter. We're gonna hand out letters of marque so that people can go on the ocean and capture pirates.
Ron
themselves.
Paul with like his thing, with his like giant collar and his tiny little head. Oh god. All right, so you know, libertarians aside, they're
He constantly has to defend his son who's getting beat up by his neighbor.
He's their Sekirei. I'm not your son. So she is a Sekirei. There are, as you said, 108 beautiful women and sometimes little boys, young effeminate boys, who choose their ashikabi. And there's a ways in which they seal the deal. They sign the contract, Garrett. How does that work?
Keys.
With a kisu. So they have a kisu and they kiss, and she grows wings, and it's like just like drinking a Red Bull. It gives you wings, and all of a sudden she's in the game, and everybody's like, all right, she's officially in. We're not going to mess with her just now.
Right. But keep in mind, guys, this entire time, her breasts are out all the time.
All the time. We are
Everywhere.
saying, like, there is no scenario in which her breasts will not eventually come out. Because, mind you, she's boxing me. She is
Right.
anything above F in our measure scale. Her cup size is insane. So I for insane.
Also, her clothing has a certain explosion pattern
It does. It goes.
that when things
Underboob
blow up
upward.
around her, she gets like this reverse W so that the shirt comes down off her collar and covers her breasts. But when it blows up, it goes flutter, flutter, flutter.
Yes, it's the burn pattern always. If I was to be like an arson detective, it's like the accelerant starts from the underboob and makes its way towards the top. That's what happens. You're right. And when like lightning strikes her, it's like it just like burns up there, like the wick started there.
Why is it always that pattern?
I don't know. Apparently, she's got some special Sekirei clothing because she did get clothing from the MBI, which is the name of the company that like sponsors this tournament. And so she has like new clothes. And one other thing that I'm like I want us to figure out over the course of this series that we run, this whole show that we run, is how you can tailor the boob shirts that they make in Japan. Because the whole time I was thinking, like, in order for you to make any of these clothes work on these big boxing women, you literally have to like sew the underboob under the breast so that there is like that crease naturally, so the boob can like go into the pocket of the shirt. I find that so fascinating. So she is also, as you said, has a lot of strength. So she's a fist type, which is not at all suggestive at all. And this is also another instance where I feel like they're actually realistic when it came to renters' rights in Japan, because the guy's like, this is a single this is a single tenant house. I will not accept anybody else. And then as soon as she saw her, he's like, you get out.
Which, as an American, bothered me.
Yeah.
Because liberty.
Well, you'd be surprised the hoops that you have to go through to get an apartment in Japan. It's insane. In fact, they kind of brought it up in the show of like, you need a guarantor, which is like someone who will ensure you pay the rest of your rent.
What if you make a lot of money?
Then you don't have to do that, or you own your own house, so you're not renting. So it's like it's one of those things. But like, it can be your company, it can be your school. A lot of times it's your university, it's your job. Like when I was coming from the United States, like I had to do homestays because I couldn't get a guarantor, someone who can guarantee that I can pay the rest of the rent for the month. So it's like it's a real thing. And for foreigners, it's like almost impossible unless you're working there. But that's what happened there, and so they're homeless essentially. You know, I lost my house, but all I had to show for it was this big booby chick, and. So she's like, I'll help you. And they fly in the sky like E.T. for the end of the first episode.
But she doesn't know how to get down.
No. And so it was very funny that like the first episode, it was like, we are so in love. And he's like, ah! And she's like looking at her. She's like, ah! Looking back at him. And then the beginning of the second episode, I'm going, ah! And like falling from the sky into this boarding house, which is just how most of these harem shows end up, is in a boarding house. So
Right. But I really like, I mean, this is probably the perv in me. I really like the boarding house.
It was. And there's more Sekireis to find out. You find out there's
the host is incredibly attractive.
Very much so. And then there's
by the way, the
lolly girl coming, like a ghost lolly girl that's out there that's like, save me, Anika.
I saw that, but Lolly doesn't do anything.
No, well, of course it doesn't. It doesn't do anything for me either. It's a thing, though. It's like you're good. Just like for every High School of the Dead, there has to be an Alice Chan. You know, there's got to be some for the weird, even more pervy people who are going to read it. You know, because they're like they look at the weird chart. Like I can imagine they're doing like the manga decisions, and they look at the pie chart and it's like 15% of all readers are lolicon pervs. Okay, well we got to make sure we have one at least then, proportional to the girls. So.
You brought up High School of the Dead, and I'm just dreaming of Bushido.
Garrett, we're gonna have to do a waifu list at some point. We're gonna have to do like some sort of like top 10, and let us know in the comments if you want to see.
Yeah, it's literally gonna be me posting a photo of her with Sinead O'Connor's cover of "Nothing Compares to You" playing in the background.
Nothing compares to you, to Busajima.
Busajima. Oh.
Saiko-san.
Oh, I got a bloody nose.
Garrett's like, no. And I remember also my wife saw that one of the character from Chobits also goes, because she thought that because we watched a show together that had a female having a lot of nosebleeds. She's like, I thought only girls got nosebleeds. I'm like, no, she's very innocent. My wife.
Wait, she thought only guys got nosebleeds.
Girls, only girls got it because we watched a show in which a girl was gushing blood. She thought that was like just for girls, but it's for everybody. And so we're gonna get to the part of the show where we start to answer the 3 questions that we want with this show. The first one is it too much for these 3 shows? You got one that was kind of a little bit more wholesome and had its moments, but like wasn't so bad. And then you got Deers, which had a lot of problematic moments, but like the central relationship wasn't too bad. And then you got Sekirei, which was just like boobies, and like all over the place, but like no sex or anything like that. So. Was that too much for a new person such as yourself? Go.
No.
No? Was any of them too much?
Oh, yeah. Deers. Deers was too much.
Right.
It was, look, I support people's fetishes and
no kink shaming on this show.
No kink shaming whatsoever, but to see it in an anime and you ask the question, can it be wholesome?
Yeah.
No, because you can build a sandwich with a bottom piece of bread of relationships, a chicken cutlet of respect, slather some mayo of self-worth. But if the top piece of bread is pure lust and breast, it makes the rest of the sandwich an unwholesome, slutty mess.
Oh my god! Oh man! Okay, so I'm gonna go to Canva tonight. I'm gonna make that you're that diagram tonight. So bear with me here, because I was thinking this a bunch. Because you have to remember, I watched this in my teenage years, so for me, the surface level served me just fine. Right? In my early 20s, who cares? Right? Or my late teens, really. I started like a lot of these started in my teenage years. I think we have to allow space for boys to have a playful understanding of their sexuality. And I feel like it does a disservice to them when everything they do that like they're interested in or intrigued with or curious about or not understanding is seen as pervy or gross. And so for me, when I watch these shows now in my mid-30s and I have this kind of perspective now, the understanding of, yes, if I saw a woman randomly, and I was learning all these, I didn't know anything about her, right? And say she was fully clothed the whole time. Like, no, there's no nudity, there's no nothing, right? It's okay for you to think to yourself, like, I wonder what this woman looks like naked. Or I wonder, oh, she's very cute. Or I think, I wonder if she's soft. Or I wonder if she's, kind of, like, telling boys those thought processes are gross or they're sick or perverted is what gets us into a lot of trouble now. And so in my mind,
right, and
I think what these shows do, and if just so I can round it out, is what these shows do is they start you with the initial like WTF moment that a lot of boys have when they're discovering like sex for the first time. It's a lot of like play and touch and what is this? Ooh, what's this? I don't understand. And they're trying to be modest as best they can because they understand the respect of it. But at the same time, they're still curious. Like it still affects them in a certain way. By the time you get through these shows, you realize that there's like, responsibility and respect and like, I think of this person more as the thing that they started as. And so I feel like they can be wholesome if you don't take today's standards of like, I saw the boobs and breasts and I cancel everything else out after that, you're gonna miss a lot. So that's my that's my pedestal for the moment. But go ahead, Gary.
Well, so much is lost in the nuance.
Right, exactly.
I'm a big proponent of one. You can't judge the past with
Today's glasses. Yeah, exactly.
That I just think that's unfair to everyone, really.
Yeah.
And I absolutely agree with you that you can take anything out of context and make it horrible.
Right, exactly. And I also think for me, I read all the way through. I've read Deers all the way through. I have seen. I stopped at Sekirei because I think with the nipples, I was like, "What am I getting out of this?" But Chobits actually as a Chobits is a really good like. It takes like the ideas of Ex Machina and makes it like dating and cutesy. Like, can people have feelings for artificial intelligence? Is it real? Is it important? Like, can you still have this like expression of love for it? And it does. I think it does it really well by the end of the show. Does the first 2 episodes explain that? Probably not, but I think it can have that wholesome message. So for the second question of can it be wholesome? Certain shows, yes. Other ones, not. You got to kind of just like, you got to give it space. And I think that's the case with all anime is like, yes, there's breasts. Yes, there's jiggling. Yes, there's a lot of like this kind of stuff. But at the same time, if you can't like grasp what the central message is and you can see that it's like a little deeper than that, why bother, right? Why bother watching a lot of stuff? So I don't know. That's my pedestal as well. I'm going to get down from it finally. But finally, the third question we had was, can this be made today?
Sure, why not? I mean, part of
it's not like I haven't seen. I don't know. Tell us in the comments below if you've seen one, but I have not seen a son and girlfriend anime since Heaven's Lost Property in like 2009.
Part of animation is that things that if you did in real television or real movies are unforgivable there. In animation, they're forgivable.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it's a medium that people give a little bit wider berth to be creative and to maybe do offensive things or to stretch the limits in an effort to get to a place where you're actually educating and saying this isn't like a terrible thing. So the entire episode you've been talking about is as if it's in the past tense. So as if this was a thing that was popular in a time and now we've kind of moved beyond it because it's offensive or it's not popular anymore. There is a moral gray area around a lot of these, and each of them do their best to make that lead protagonist very vanilla, very apologetic, very I respect you, stop, no, don't, I don't wanna, I wanna be the good guy, which is nice, but also kind of.
But that also is problematic because it sets up the nice guy scenario of like I'm being nice to women, so why don't they want to get with me? Like it's like
well, as long as he doesn't say nobody likes me because I'm the nice.
Yeah, because then you should fully go into Reddit and 4chan and become an incel at that point. So so what we're gonna do is do what we call our Weeb and Noob scores, what we do every week. But this one's gonna be a little bit different since we did 3 shows. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna rank which ones we like the best to least, or least best, as we'll say. And then the second thing is we're going to rate the genre. Like, what is it for, so what our Weeb and Noob score is a rating for fans of the medium who've watched it a long time to new people. How important is it for you to watch right away or to watch to kind of get it or really truly appreciate it? It's kind of more of a priority scale than it is a good or bad. So to rank the score, so we'll start just with the shows that we watched. I liked Chobits the best. Deers was my second, so pretty much in the order that I watched it, and then Sekirei was my third. I felt like Chobits and Deers hinged on a little bit more romance, and so I thought there was more meat to the bone there, and I felt Sekirei was a little bit too service and was going in a harem, and I started to once I go to harem, I'm like, all right. So that's my ranking, but, that could just be me. Garrett, what are your rankings for the 3 shows that we watched?
My favorite was not the best one.
Okay, so let's go by favorite. I'm okay with you just going by favorite. Which one you like?
So the worst, not the worst. My least favorite was Deers.
Okay.
Didn't do it for me. The best qualitatively was Chobits. And my favorite was Sekirei.
Yeah, okay. So based on favoritism versus quality, you can flip-flop Chobits and Sekirei.
Yep. No, I totally recognize that Sekirei gave me a semi.
It gave you a kissy. And so,
my nose got a little
drip there. A little drip there. Gonna get a little tissue there. So let's rank the genre in general. We'll probably revisit this one eventually. Maybe see if there's a modern one. Maybe I'll be wrong. But I would say Sudden Girlfriend, if you like, as on a fan level, on a weeb level, if you want like a historical lesson on where some of these things go, because like a lot of harem kind of came out of this this genre. Also, they're made for women, so support women artists. You know, I would say for that reason, I would give Sudden Girlfriend like a real middle of the level 5. Like, it's
real quick though. Would you call Monster House Sudden Girlfriend?
Because you're introduced to the harem right away, and there's at least 3 right away, I would say no.
Okay.
Because Sudden Girlfriend has this initial relationship that is the crux of the show. I think Monster House, Monster Musume, you keep on Monster House, but it's Monster Musume, Everyday Life of My Monster Girls. The character, the Lamia and the main character there are not the crux of the show, and the Lamia is constantly having to fight for the attention of him with the harpy and the centaur. So, and here's the thing, I also think we'll do a full review of that show too, Garrett, which I think is important. But but for me, middle of the road, Weeb score, it gets a 5. What do you give it as a noob score for the genre of Sudden?
Genre?
Yes. How important / how hard is it to watch for a new fan?
I mean, speaking in sweeping generalities,
yeah,
I think it'd be harder for the female fan to get into it. And I know that's making a lot of assumptions about a lot of you out there. And I apologize if these assumptions don't match up with who you are and what you like. But I would say that to get to what Kyle found in these, you need to give them a chance.
Yeah.
And I think you should. However, you have to get through the surface, which is breast and nipples and
puppy dog girls
and
like kind of like useless.
You know, it's a little strange. So, you know, do I think anyone is Sudden Girlfriend going to be like the genre that you're like, that's what I like? Like, I like Metallica. I like hard rock. I like, you know, Sudden Girlfriend anime. No, I don't think that's what it is. I think it's fringe at best. You should check it out once in your life if you're an anime fan, just to say that I did it. But I'll give it a 6.
Yeah. In fact, I actually pulled a review from one of the people who watched Chobits from Anime News Network, who Shannon K. Garrity, who wrote Persicom. She saw the women in the show as obedient and perfect. They're perfect women, stripped clean of everything that makes real women less than perfect servants to men, and which makes them everything that makes women human. So if you see it that way, if that's the surface that you see, I completely understand and respect that decision. But also at the same time, there is more below the surface that you can find if you gave it more of a chance from the like, oh, this is just a guy who likes a girl who likes, you know, it does this, it's just like this. Like, I understand the ability to like scrunch your nose in the beginning of it, but as I said, you give it a chance, I think it'll be something worth watching. So middle road 5, I'm sorry, did you give it a number?
6.
Okay, awesome. So you know, so really it's while suddenly girlfriends can come in your life, suddenly our show must end as well. So we have to always ask for your thoughts. What is your favorite Sudden Girlfriend anime that you like? Is it the more romance-based Chobits, or is it the floppy booby styled Sekirei? Let us know in the comment below, because we really want to continue the conversation, especially about which themes were better. Please follow us on all of our social media platforms. We're on Instagram at Wanwa Podcast, WANWA. And we are also at Twitter at Weeb_Noob. You can find us on our main site, anchor.fm/Wanwa Podcast, or you can find us anywhere your podcasts are found. Please review us with a 5-star. It'll help people see our show, and it really supports us. So thank you in advance for that. So before we end this show, Garrett, do you have any final thoughts on the Sudden Girlfriend anime genre?
Yeah, I really want to know what school district allows a teacher to teach in lingerie.
So Garrett and I are going to be looking for the sky for some fist-type angels. We're going to be programming our Persicoms and teaching our dears English. All in all, to wish you a great see you next week.
Take care, y'all.